Hi Sugar Snaps. A couple months ago I shared a tutorial on how to make this wall hanging basket, and you can find that video here if you want to weave one of your own. Today I have my mom Sherry on to share some floral design concepts with us to create floral designs for the different seasons. So we'll do a winter, summer, spring, fall arrangement, and we're going to share some concepts of how to put together a floral arrangement using silk flowers. We aren't florists, so don't worry about being one either. We're just going to share some design concepts of how to use flowers to create something that's sweet and pretty for your home decor.
There are lots of places that you can buy silk flowers. Most of the ones we're using today came from Hobby Lobby. You can also pick them up at Michael's, at the Craft Warehouse, at Joann's, and even the dollar store.
We've even found some at thrift stores. Now let's get started with the winter arrangement.
Okay, here's what we have today for the winter arrangement. I started with this muted greenery to use as the base. And here's one of the design principles. If in doubt, use the rule of 3. Find 3 of whatever you're using. If they're smaller, you could go with 5, but always stick with odd numbers and it immediately looks better. So I'm going to take these and pop them right down into the basket. You want to hold that for me? Yep. Okay. Then we found a focal point flower. That's this burlap flower. Right now in the craft stores, burlap is very popular and there are a ton of burlap pieces. So we'll just stick that right down in the middle as our focal point. Okay.
And a focal point is just the thing that is the centerpiece of your design.
Yep. And from there you just fill in, and it's very subjective. It's just what you think looks good. So I'm going to go next with our filler pieces. These are a little lacier, a little more detailed, and I have 3 of them. With this basket, because it's so narrow, you usually don't have to have any kind of a foundation inside, like craft foam. They just stay. If you're gonna put it outside where it's really windy, you might wanna use a little hot glue or some craft foam to hold them in place. How's that look? Are we balanced? Okay, so you see how I'm just building 3 on 3, balancing it out. So then we picked a couple of these pink roses as a pop of color. And also, if you notice, my colorway is all similar muted shades. So they go together, they complement each other. This is a little less traditional for maybe a winter, but it's supposed to be, or my thought was that it was a little bit icy and cool. I also have another white rose that we'll add in here. And again, you just have to keep moving them and playing around until you feel like it looks balanced. There's no rules here. Well, there are some rules, but you don't have to follow them. And there you go. So one of the nice things about using the basket that Brittany made and the silk flowers is it's very, very light. So you could use a command hook wherever you wanted to hang this on your front door and it won't damage anything. And it's easy to just switch out with the seasons, which we're gonna do right now.
Another thing about the colors here, in addition to the muted colors, as Mom mentioned earlier, is that the colors are all in a similar palette. So there's the creams and kind of the pinks, the deeper rose here, and then a lighter pink in these hydrangea flowers. And the simpler the palette you use, the more likely you'll have success in a nice design when you've finished. The more colors you involve, it can get a little bit scattered and look a bit slightly more messy. So keeping it simple to start out with is a great way to keep your colors cohesive and your design turning out well. Next up, we have a spring arrangement.
For this one, I started with a large and brightly colored piece of greenery. I'm not even going to cut apart the wiring because it just flops really nicely. So we'll go ahead again and set that as our foundation in the back of the basket. Okay, we'll arrange that as we fill it up. And then for this one, we're using similar colors in that we're using pink and whites. For spring, I went with a brighter, clearer pink. Pops a little. These are hydrangeas. Sometimes with silk flowers, it's hard to tell exactly what they were going for. And I broke my rule of 3, and I just used 2 of these big blousy hydrangeas. It seems to work because for this one, we're going to use the white as our focal point. Okay, I'm going to have you hold that for me. Still, we have the 3. We just use different colors. Then I found this pink, also matches some of the pink tints, and we'll just pop this in the front. You can cut these apart if you want to spread them out more. You just need a very strong pair of scissors or a wire cutter to cut the wires apart. And we'll take our white roses. Let's see, do we want these in the front? I think we'll pop these in the back just to peek out. Give some fullness. And then finally, we have a very fine filler material. This is, I think, supposed to be reminiscent of baby's breath. And this is what a lot of florists use with real flowers to fill out an arrangement. So we're gonna do that here.
And you can see as she's adding the baby's breath, it's adding texture. We have a lot of large leaves, large petals. The roses are more bulky. And then adding the baby's breath adds something smaller to add texture to the overall arrangement.
Kind of work your way through the network here. So the silk flowers are really nice. Another nice thing about them is that because they're on wire stems, you can really bend them where you want them to go and they stay put. If you do that with real flowers, they tend to break. Again, you just keep adding this filler until it looks full and lush, the color or the look that you're going for. This bundle of baby's breath was a big bundle that we cut apart. So you see here, I'm not even gonna cut the stem. That way, if I wanna use it for something else later, I haven't limited myself. I just bent it. Just do a couple like that.
And if your flowers fall off the stem, usually you can just pull the stem out and reattach them like this.
Yeah. They grow back.
The nice thing about using fake flowers.
So this one is a little brighter, more blousy, I would call it, and it would really pop on your front door at springtime.
And there's kind of a layering process that just naturally occurred here, with the leaves being the tallest layer in the back, and then the hydrangeas and the roses kind of curving in next, and then these pink flowers in the front, and then filling it in with the baby's breath. So you have kind of this hillside of flowers effect. Now let's do a summer arrangement. For this one, Mom chose some bright colors here, and we have some contrasting colors between the purple and the yellow, and then some bright pink and orange. So it's a lot of brights, contrasty kinds of colors. We're throwing in a lot of different hues here. So where we talked about keeping it basic with lighter colors or colors that kind of all are on the same color palette, we're throwing that tip out the window and going for lots of colors. And because they're all in the same range of depth of color, they work well together. So they're all brights, they're all clear colors. There's no muted or dark moody colors in this bundle. It's all very bright, loud, and summery.
The craft store will help you out with this because they will be selling these flowers in a display in one place. So you can see that they've kind of intended them to go together, and that helps out. Whereas if you start picking flowers from one part of the store and another part of the store, well, you're on your own then. So for this one, I started out with a darker greenery that is just going to recede into the background and be the foundation or the back of the basket. Again, this was a bigger piece that I cut into 3. Just gonna start us off here.
And you're creating a shape here too.
Also, yes, kind of a pyramid. Kind of a pyramid effect. And then we had these lilies tucked away from another project. And so this became the beginning of this inspiration. So I'm just gonna tuck that whole thing in there. There happen to be 5 lilies on this stem.
So playing with that rule of odd numbers.
Odd numbers. It's a little unwieldy, but once we get these bright flowers in here, we will make it work. Okay, so then I have 3. I think I have 3 of each color. So I'm just gonna start to evenly disperse them through the basket. We'll go with the purple and the yellow being the contrast right up front. And then I'll poke in our pink. Now one way you can use these is to kind of force the lily petal where you want it by pushing the lily forward. Or you can do the opposite if you want the lily to stay in the background. And finally, a happy accident here is that this orange perfectly matches the stamen in the lily. So it picks up that orange color. I didn't plan that, it just happened. Okay, and we ended up with a even man out, which happens to be an odd man out in this case. So here, let me show you what we got here. Kind of a mess. So we're gonna play around with this, and I'll hold it and let Brittany.
So what I'm doing here is I'm making sure our background shows, so those leaves, the dark leaves that we put in first, I'm gonna pull those out so that they are visible as the background, and then start to tuck the flowers in amongst each other, trying to kind of even out where they land. So I'm tucking the lilies forward or back to see how I want it to look. And then if you see here, we have a purple flower back here that we can't even see. So I'm gonna pull this up just a little bit, trying to keep in mind that layering effect, trying to get multiple layers while building out the pyramid shape.
There are lots of shapes you can use for flower arrangements, but if you're new to this and not sure where you're headed, going for that pyramid or triangular effect is usually a winner.
On some of these, I guess daisies, whatever these bright flowers are.
They're supposed to be gerbera daisies. Gerbera daisies.
I'm folding them down a bit, so bending the wire using that nice floral wire that's in the flowers so that you can see them face on. Otherwise, they're sticking up straight.
This one is nice and bright. It will pop in the strong summer sun on your front door.
Now for an autumn arrangement.
This one started out with the inspiration of the blue flowers that we already had around the house. And I just went to the store and started holding it up to things to see what felt like it looked good together. And I came up with this sage. They just felt like they looked good together. So I started out with the sage and the blue flowers as the basis for this arrangement. And once again, we're just gonna take our 3 pieces and stick them in the back. And then we'll put our 3 blue flowers. One really good way, if you're not too sure about your color matching skills, is to find a piece of fabric or a quilt or a picture, something that you really like, and take that to the store and use that as your inspiration for your color palette, just matching them up. That's a trick that quilters use all the time. Okay, so in this case, in my rule of 3, I picked 3 different colors. So we have the blue, the orange, and these red. This is a little bit of a non-traditional fall color palette,
but still in kind of that muted, slightly moody color range. Even the orange is more of a burnt orange.
Yeah, and it has, you probably can't see it on the camera, but it has some darker edges. And of course, you can't really go wrong with orange when it comes to fall. And then we may or may not want these white picks. I have 2 of them, but they have multiple heads, so we can spread them out after we get them in. In this case, I tuck them back behind the greenery because they're almost making a backdrop themselves. What do you think so far?
Yeah, I like it. I think we lost our greenery.
Okay, I'll hold the white ones and you can pull that up. And again, unlike real flowers, silk flowers are very forgiving when you are pulling and prodding and poking and bending them. She's gonna magically grow that back.
And you can bend the wires again to move things around.
And even though we have 2 different bright colors here, they're of a similar intensity, so it doesn't look like the arrangement is tipped one way or the other. It still has a visual balance. Happy with that one?
Yeah.
Okay, there's our fall arrangement.
If you enjoy making things, give this video a thumbs up because it'll help it spread to other makers. Check the links in the description below for a link to a video on how to make this basket, as well as places to find silk flowers and the other materials you'll need, like wire cutters or scissors. If you want more fiber or textile art tutorials, inspiration, and resources, sign up for my email update list. The link's in the description below, and I send out a twice a month email with lots of resources for all the different fiber arts I cover. Thanks for joining Mom and I to make some floral arrangements, and we'll see you next time. Happy making.
Happy making.